Forrest hastily retreated, calling Tommy a lunatic, raising his spear to counterattack, but his attack was caught by Tommy. "Forrest, today is your death day." Tommy seized the spear and kicked Forrest away, then hurled the spear at him. Without hesitation, Forrest used Shattering Fist to deflect the spear. Mr. Luo recognized the type of drug Tommy used. He couldn't believe Tommy would resort to a forbidden substance just to defeat Forrest. Chubb anxiously asked what it was. Mr. Luo explained that the Federation had developed it years ago to combat powerful zombies and evolved beasts. It could greatly enhance human strength for a short period, but afterward, users could either lose their cultivation tier or become crippled. Mr. Luo turned to the Academy officials, insisting the fight be stopped because Tommy had used a forbidden drug. But Tommy's homeroom teacher stepped forward, arguing that there were no rules against using such drugs in a duel. The referee looked to the Academy officials, who nodded in agreement. The battle continued, and Mr. Luo squinted his eyes, noticing a middle-aged man in the audience. It was the head of the Stryker family. He quickly realized that the Stryker family was a major shareholder in the Academy, which explained why the fight hadn't been stopped. Mr. Luo clenched his fist, feeling helpless. Was he just going to watch Forrest get killed? At that moment, Tommy's punches rained down on Forrest's body. Tommy believed that Forrest without a weapon was no match for him, especially with his Shattering Fist, the strongest bronze-tier martial technique. Forrest wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled. "Who said I only know how to use a spear?" Standing up, Forrest activated Explosive Anger, significantly boosting his attributes for 10 minutes. He then darted forward and charged at Tommy. Their fists collided with a thunderous impact. The two exchanged blow after blow, leaving the students in disbelief. Tommy, frustrated and angry, thought, "How can this weakling still be alive after I used the forbidden drug?" Forrest's smile only infuriated him further. Both fighters unleashed their techniques simultaneously. Forrest dodged Tommy's attack and landed his splintering fist on Tommy's arm. Tommy laughed maniacally, believing there was no way Forrest would get through his tough skin, which even melee weapons couldn't penetrate. But Forrest was actually aiming for the internal organs and muscles. Suddenly, Tommy felt as if his right arm had exploded from within. The students recognized Forrest's technique as the Splinting Fist, a skill that typically caused severe injury or death to its user. Back on the stage, Tommy fell to his knees. What shocked him the most was how Forrest managed to master the Splintering Fist in a mere 3 days. Forrest gave him a pitiful look, however. In the next second, Tommy took out a dagger and darted towards him. However, this time, Forrest was prepared to end it for good. But before he could act, a powerful force sent him flying. Chubb and the girl rushed to help him up, while Mr. Luo stepped in front of him. The head of the Stryker family had intervened, and he was on the verge of becoming a 4th-tier martial artist. Forrest looked coldly at the Stryker family head. "Are all Stryker family members this shameless?" he asked. Mr. Luo also spoke coldly. "Both parties signed a life-and-death agreement. This is a sanctioned duel. He should know the consequences." The Stryker family head didn't respond, only staring at Forrest and saying coldly, "I will remember you." The referee soon announced the result. Forrest had won the duel. Exhausted from the day's events, Forrest went to the infirmary and then returned to his dorm to rest for the night. The next morning, someone knocked on his door. When he opened it, he found Mr. Luo standing there. Mr. Luo looked at him seriously and said, "I have good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first?" Forrest decided to get the bad news out of the way first. It turned out that the Academy had decided to punish him. Forrest was taken aback and immediately demanded to know why. Mr. Luo sighed, telling him to calm down before explaining the situation. Apparently, the Stryker family, who happened to be on the Academy board, was absolutely livid. One of their sons had his wrist broken, and the other was almost beaten to death. Such a humiliation was simply intolerable for a family of their stature. Because Tommy had been caught taking forbidden drugs in front of everyone, they couldn't stir up trouble over the martial arts competition. So, they blew up the issue of Philip's injury and pressured the Academy to punish Forrest. Forrest clenched his fists so tightly that the veins on his arms bulged. The level of rage he felt was almost unimaginable. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, then asked what his punishment would be. Mr. Luo sighed again before revealing that Forrest would have to join the soldiers of Starlight City in their annual campaign in Light Fortress. Now, Light Fortress was a massive stronghold up north, filled with zombies and evolved beasts constantly threatening the nearby cities. So every year, the surrounding cities would organize a big sweep to take care of the place. What Mr. Luo didn't know was that the more he spoke, the happier Forrest got. All he could think about was it was certainly going to be a paradise for gaining experience. "All right, I'm in," Forrest said with a big smile. Mr. Luo, now worried that Forrest was just saying this out of anger, quickly cautioned him that this is not a joke. He tells him the death rate for soldiers during these sweeps is a whopping 70%. He's been trying the best he can to reduce Forrest's punishment, but Forrest shook his head and thanked Mr. Luo. Then, he asked about the good news. With a small smile, Mr. Luo pulled a silver card from his pocket. It turned out to be his reward for making it onto the top 100 list, a silver technique card for the wrathful rainstorm. Forrest accepted the card with both hands, knowing full well how rare and precious it was. Mr. Luo explained that the technique was created by a master spearman from 1,000 years ago, a technique so fast that the master could stab 100 times in a single second. However, very few had ever truly mastered it. Just imagining being able to stab 100 times in a single second made Forrest's eyes light up with excitement. He was determined to master this technique, no matter what. Mr. Luo patted him on the shoulder with a serious tone, telling him that he was making amazing progress, but just make sure he came back alive. "Don't worry, I'll definitely make it back," Forrest replied with a confident smile. Later that evening, Forrest went out and bought a few sets of combat gear and other essentials. But suddenly, something whizzed past his head. He reacted instantly, dodging the attack. A group of people, weapons in hand, appeared before him. They seemed surprised that Forrest had dodged the ambush. Activating his eye for analysis, he quickly assessed the situation. Just a bunch of first tier. Well, looked like someone had sent a delivery of experience points straight to him. Anyway, Forrest asked them if they realized this was the middle of the city, and if they were really going to try something here. The group didn't seem to care. One bald guy, who clearly thought he had it all figured out, sneered and said that once they took Forrest out, no one would know what happened. Before he could finish his sentence, he charged at Forrest with a bronze technique. However, Forrest just chuckled, easily sidestepping the attack, and countered with his splintering fist aimed at the guy's arm. The moment his punch connected, the man felt as if all the bones and muscles in his arm had simultaneously shattered. Since these guys were clearly here to kill him, Forrest didn't see any reason to hold back. The bald guy suddenly looked terrified and tried to say something, but Forrest was too fast. With one swift punch, he shattered his skull. The remaining goons took a few steps back, stunned by how easily Forrest, who was still just a novice, had taken out a first tier in a single punch. They gritted their teeth and decided to rush him all at once, but it didn't make a difference. Forrest only needed 2 more punches to take down 2 more of them. The last 2 were so scared they dropped to the ground, trembling and shouting, "Run! Let's get out of here!" Forrest didn't bother chasing them. He already had a pretty good idea that these were Stryker family lackeys. But sending these guys after him? They seriously underestimated him. Not long after, in a luxurious mansion, a woman furiously threw her wineglass to the floor, cursing, "Useless! All of you are useless. 5 first-tier ambushing 1 novice, and you still got 3 of you killed?" The woman, in her 40s and visibly out of shape, glared at the 2 kneeling before her. They were drenched in sweat, stammering excuses about how Forrest had somehow killed them with a single punch. At that moment, the door swung open, and a man stormed in. He was furious that they had dared to attack someone in the city, asking the woman if she is out trying to ruin the Stryker family's reputation completely. The man barked, sending the 2 lackeys scrambling out of the room. The woman, startled by his sudden outburst, glanced at him nervously. Once the room was empty, the man turned his displeased gaze toward her, asking if she really thinks no one would find out about this. He snapped, saying if he hadn't sent people to clean up the mess, the higher-ups would have been all over them by now. The woman didn't back down, even saying she was not going to just stand by and watch her sons get bullied. She wants revenge. Because of Forrest, Tommy was sent to train on the road of death, a place where survival is nearly impossible. The man sighed, knowing too well that it's Tommy who brought this on himself. After taking those forbidden drugs, Tommy's path in martial arts is all but ruined. The only way he might improve is by going to that so-called road of death. He then added coldly, telling her to not worry about Forrest. He had already put pressure on the academy, and he was set to head to the Light Fortress soon. The death rate there is already 70%, and he wouldn't mind if it went a bit higher. A sinister smile crossed his face. Time flew by, and the day to depart for the Light Fortress arrived. Forrest found himself at the airport, surrounded by a sea of soldiers. An officer began calling out names, and soon enough, he got to Forrest's. "You're Forrest?" the officer asked, glancing down at his tablet, then back up with curiosity. Forrest activated his eye of analysis and quickly noted that this officer was a third tier, but he couldn't gather any more details. The officer gave him a quick once-over, then addressed the group, telling everyone to stay sharp. Before turning away, he added, "I hope all of you make it back alive." Just then, a tall, muscular soldier with tattoos looked Forrest up and down and smirked. "You sure you're in the right place?" saying Forrest must have taken a wrong turn. The other soldiers burst out laughing, but Forrest simply glanced at the man without saying a word. The officer suddenly spun around, barking at them to straighten up and take things seriously. "A total of 40 martial artists will fulfill the mission today." The soldiers immediately snapped to attention, though the tattooed one couldn't resist one last jab. "Saying they got 4 teams of 40 warriors for this sweep, huh? Guess it's more like 39, pointing to Forrest, saying he doesn't even count as a real martial artist yet. Once again, laughter rippled through the group. The officer's face darkened with irritation, demanded him, and those who laughed to step forward. 100 push-ups, now, he demanded. The offending soldiers groaned but obeyed. The officer then walked over to Forrest, his expression serious. "Listen, I know you're a student, but once you're part of this mission, you're just like everyone else. Be ready to face death at any moment." Forrest nodded earnestly. "Understood." Satisfied, the officer turned and headed onto the plane, announcing that everyone had 15 minutes to get ready before takeoff. The plane was massive, with enough space inside to house a training area. Forrest found a quiet corner and watched the soldiers going through their drills. Just then, a long-haired soldier approached him with a friendly smile. He also used to attend Galactic Academy, too. Forrest glanced at him but didn't say much. The soldier seemed curious as to why a student who hadn't even graduated was being sent to Light Fortress with them. Forrest shrugged and tells him that he got screwed over by the academy. The soldier chuckled knowingly, guessed that Forrest must have pissed off someone important. Before he could respond, a pair of gloves came flying through the air, landing near the long-haired soldier. The same tattooed guy who had mocked Forrest earlier strolled over with a few of his buddies, asking why are they chatting. It was clear there was some bad blood between them, but the long-haired soldier stood his ground, saying Forrest was his junior. No need to push him around. The tattooed guy sneered and shoved him aside, then eyed the wooden box by Forrest's side. "What's in here, kid? Let's take a look." He reached out to grab it. Forrest blocked him and questioned if his elders ever taught him not to touch other people's things without asking. The tattooed soldier hadn't expected that kind of response. The others started egging him on, laughing and telling him to just grab the box and see what was inside. Forrest smirked and asked if they ever heard the saying, "Curiosity killed the cat," but the soldier ignored the warning, his hands tightening around the box as he yanked it away. The moment he lifted it, he was shocked by the unexpected weight. Just then, Forrest moved. The box snapped open in an instant, and before the soldier could even process what was happening, a long spear appeared, its tip hovering just a few centimeters from his throat. Forrest looked at the soldier and stated, "Silver Phantom here doesn't come out unless it's going to draw blood." The soldier's bravado quickly melted into fear as he felt a real killing intent radiating from Forrest. But just as quickly, Forrest shook his head and retracted the spear, looking at the group with disappointment. "So, this is what a first tier is like?" he mused aloud. The soldier, stung by the insult, demanded, "What did you just say?" Forrest slowly repacked his spear, then looked the soldier dead in the eye, repeating his words deliberately. "I said, you're trash." The soldier, now furious, lunged at him with a punch. Forrest didn't bother dodging and instead met the punch head-on with one of his own. The next moment the soldier was sent flying several meters across the room. He scrambled to his feet, rage burning in his eyes as he charged at him again. But before the fight could escalate, the officer returned and shouted, "Enough!" The room fell silent as the officer's gaze zeroed in on the tattooed soldier. "Bruiser? Picking on the new guy again?" One of the other soldiers quickly spoke up, saying actually, it was the new kid who knocked Bruiser to the ground first. The officer raised an eyebrow, and then gave Bruiser a withering look. A first tier, getting knocked down by a student who isn't even a full-fledged martial artist, is a real embarrassment. If he was that bored, he should spend some time thinking about how he's going to survive at Light Fortress. Bruiser quickly draining away under the officer's icy stare. Soon enough, they arrived at Light Fortress. Everyone disembarked from the plane, fully armed and ready for action. The officer briefed the group, explaining that he and the other 3 officers would head to the core area to take down the most dangerous evolved beasts. The rest of the soldiers would split into 4 squads of 10, each team tasked with entering different parts of the fortress. Forrest turned to Marco, wanting to know if he'd been here before. Marco shook his head. Turned out, he was fresh out of training. This is his first real mission. As they spoke, a few guys passed by, Bruiser glancing at Forrest with a smirk, telling him to try not to die too quickly. Forrest just chuckled and shot back. Don't worry about me, but you might want to be concerned about yourself. If you couldn't even beat a student like me, you might not live to see tomorrow's sunrise. Just then, the squad leader, a tough-as-nails female officer, approached. She was in charge of their team for this mission. Bruiser, zip it, she ordered, cutting off his complaints, telling him that he needs to drop the attitude. This place is dangerous enough without them 2 causing problems that could put the whole team at risk. With that, the squad set off. It wasn't long before they encountered their first group of zombies. The squad leader proved her skills by taking them down with a single slash each time. The other team members weren't too shabby either, though these were just first-tier zombies. Nothing too challenging. Some of the soldiers even started thinking this mission might be easier than they'd expected. The squad leader, however, quickly set them straight, warned that they were just on the outskirts, and the higher-tier zombies and evolved beasts were deeper inside the town. As they ventured into the town, it was clear the place had been abandoned for a long time, but soon enough, they came across a larger group of zombies, most of them second-tier. Bruiser, still cocky, swung his axe with a smirk, not realizing the zombies were tougher than he thought. His overconfidence cost him. His attack missed, and a zombie nearly sank its teeth into him. Just as it was about to bite, a long spear pierced the zombie's skull. Forrest got a system alert informing him that he had killed a second-tier zombie, gaining 2,000 experience points. Bruiser froze, then stammered a quick, thanks." Forrest nodded and then charged into the zombie horde. To him, these zombies were just walking bundles of experience points. The fight didn't last long. Within moments, Forrest had taken down several second-tier zombies. The other squad members watched in disbelief. Wasn't Forrest just a student? How was he stronger than them? They remembered how Bruiser couldn't even lift Forrest's spear earlier, yet Forrest himself was wielding it with ease. The squad leader snapped them out of their daze. "Stop gawking and help him out!" As they finished off the last of the zombies, a sudden, chilling roar echoed through the town. Forrest recognized the sound immediately. It was the call of a zombie leader, summoning more of its kind. The team froze for a moment, then watched in horror as an endless wave of zombies came rushing at them from one direction. The sight of the massive horde made even the squad leader's scalp tingle. She quickly ordered everyone to use their ranged weapons, and the team pulled out their laser guns, firing at the oncoming swarm. But unless they hit the zombies in the head, even a laser blast through the body wouldn't stop them. Forrest continued to mow down zombies, and soon enough, the system alerted him that he had leveled up to 12. Forrest quickly allocated his 12 potential points between strength and agility, boosting his combat power to 800 and officially making him a first-tier martial artist. The perks of being a first-tier included faster rage accumulation when attacked, though he could still only unleash his charge strike 3 times a day. As the zombie horde closed in, everyone put away their laser guns and switched to melee weapons, ready for close combat. The squad leader didn't hesitate. She unleashed her technique, and the rest of the team charged in right behind her. But Forrest was already ahead of them, practically glowing with excitement. No one else seemed to understand why he looked so thrilled, maybe even a little too much. The truth was, having just leveled up, Forrest was feeling the surge of his newfound power. In mere moments, he cut down several zombies with ease. But then, bad news struck. Zombies had started closing in from behind as well. They were surrounded. Their only option was to retreat into a nearby building. The squad leader quickly ordered everyone to fall back. As they ran, they fired their laser guns at the approaching zombies, trying to buy themselves some time. Once everyone was inside, they noticed a roll-up door that could be their last line of defense. But the zombies were already too close. If Forrest and the squad leader tried to get inside now, they wouldn't have time to close the door before the horde swarmed in. The squad leader made a split-second decision. "You go inside, I'll stay and hold them off." But Forrest wasn't having any of it. He grabbed her by the arm and with a powerful throw sent her flying back into the building. The rest of the squad watched in disbelief. With a grin, Forrest laughed. Sorry, but I don't let women cover my back. The squad leader was about to rush out to help Forrest when Bruiser grabbed her arm. She was frantic, but Bruiser urged her to look closely. Forrest, standing alone against the seemingly endless horde of zombies, wasn't panicking. In fact, he looked remarkably calm. Slowly, he raised his spear, took a deep breath, and unleashed the wings of 100 birds. In an instant, dozens of zombies were obliterated, and the rest were sent flying several meters away. The squad's jaws practically hit the floor. "What kind of skill is that?" they shouted in disbelief. With the zombies momentarily cleared, Forrest took the opportunity to dash inside the building. The others quickly pulled down the roll-up door, sealing it shut. But despite its thickness, the door soon began to buckle under the relentless pounding of the zombies. They barely had a moment to catch their breath when another teammate, who had been scouting inside, called out that there was a sturdier iron door at the top of the stairs on the second floor. Without wasting any time, they all sprinted toward the stairs. Behind them, the first roll-up door finally gave way, zombies pouring in just as they reached the iron door and slammed it shut. They could hear the horde crashing against it, but for now, they were safe. As they climbed higher, they couldn't help but notice how eerie the building was. Thick layers of dust and cobwebs covered everything, with the occasional dried-up corpse adding to the unsettling atmosphere. The higher they went, the more webs there were, almost choking the narrow stairwell. One of the soldiers nervously muttered, "You don't think there are mutated spiders up here, do you?" Just as he said that, he felt something drop onto his back. Panic set in as he started thrashing around, trying to shake it off. Bruiser quickly swung his axe, knocking the creature away, revealing it to be a first-tier black spider. Clearly, they walked right into a spider's nest. Suddenly, another team member, his face pale with fear, pointed to a dark corner of the building. What they saw made their blood run cold. A swarm of spiders, too many to count, was rushing straight toward them. Even the squad leader, who was usually calm under pressure, looked a bit shaken as she urged everyone, "Get to the third floor, quick!" But the moment they turned the corner, they saw more spiders crawling up the opposite staircase. While they were only first tier, their sheer numbers were terrifying. Forrest quickly assessed the situation, remembering that the building had 4 floors. They needed to make it to the rooftop. With Forrest and the squad leader leading the charge, they pushed their way up. Forrest didn't hesitate, and with a powerful kick, he smashed open the iron door to the rooftop. Marco rushed to lock the door behind them, and the group collapsed onto the rooftop, gasping for breath, utterly exhausted. Now, all they could do was wait. If the zombies didn't sense them, they would eventually wander off. Forrest finally took a moment to catch his breath and have a sip of water. He leaned over the edge of the rooftop, looking down at the horde of zombies below. The sight was enough to make even the squad leader gulp nervously. As Forrest scanned the scene, something strange caught his eye. A pack of second-rank saber-toothed wolves was attacking the zombies. The sight was so bizarre that neither of them knew what was going on. This was the first time they'd seen anything like it. Hearing the commotion, the zombies inside the building began pouring out, following the others outside. The squad leader's eyes lit up with relief, knowing this is their chance to get out of here. But Forrest couldn't help but wonder why the evolved beasts were suddenly turning on the zombies. Snapping out of his thoughts, the squad leader told everyone to get their gear together and prepare to move out. They all scrambled to their feet, and Marco asked, "What's the plan now?" The leader's plan was to continue to clear out the remaining zombies and evolved beasts in the area, but they needed to break through the encirclement first. As they carefully made their way back down the stairs, they heard some shuffling noises. Some zombies had already broken through the iron door and were scattered across the stairwell. Forrest and the squad leader took them out with swift, precise strikes, breaking through the remnants of the spider swarm. After that, the remaining zombies were easily dealt with. As they exited the building and turned a corner, they could still see the horde of zombies locked in battle with the saber-toothed wolf. Unfortunately, the wolf's sharp sense of smell soon located them. With their cover blown, there was no choice but to fight their way through. The team worked together, quickly taking down 3 of the wolves, but then another one emerged from the shadows. This one was much larger than the rest. Forrest activated his eye of analysis and immediately recognized the threat. "It's a third-tier saber-tooth wolf." The squad leaders wonder what he meant. Forrest's voice dropped even lower, telling them this was the Wolf King. The massive wolf paused for a moment, eyeing them with an unsettling intelligence. Forrest warned everyone to stay alert, but before they could react, The wolf launched itself at one of the soldiers with lightning speed. The soldier barely managed to dodge, but instead of retreating as Forrest advised, he raised his weapon and swung at the beast. The blade struck the wolf's hide, only to bend like it was made of soft metal. The soldier's eyes widened in disbelief. How is it this tough? He didn't have time to ponder the question. In the next instant, the wolf's jaws clamped down on his arm, tearing it clean off. The soldier screamed in agony before passing out from the pain. The squad leader quickly retaliated with her technique, but the wolf dodged effortlessly and shifted its attention to her. Just as she braced herself for what she thought was certain death, Forrest dashed in, thrusting his spear into the hound's shoulder. But despite the direct hit, the attack didn't seem to do much damage. Forrest warned, "Its defense is insanely high and they need to be careful." He followed up with a barrage of spear strikes, but they barely left a mark on the beast. However, with each attack, Forrest could feel his rage building. He didn't hesitate for a second. Once his rage gauge was full, he immediately unleashed a charged attack. With a powerful upward thrust, Forrest sent the Wolf King flying several meters into the air. The squad erupted in cheers, thinking they had finally won. But Forrest wasn't celebrating. He knew better. If the system hadn't given him the all-clear, that beast was still very much alive. Sure enough, as the dust settled, the silhouette of the Wolf King reappeared. This time, a sinister red mist began to seep from its body. Its eyes glowed a menacing blood red, and its entire frame was covered in wounds, making it look even more terrifying. The squad's cheers died down as they realized the fight wasn't over. With a feral roar, the beast launched itself at Forrest, now in a berserk state. Forrest recognized this as the Wolf King's special berserk ability, a terrifying power that came with reaching the third tier. "Everyone, get back!" he shouted, knowing they couldn't afford to be caught in its path. But the beast was too fast. A massive wave of force slammed into everyone, sending them flying. Forrest was thrown against a wall, coughing up blood from the impact. He had dodged as quickly as he could, but it wasn't enough. If it weren't for the system's warning, I'd be a goner, he thought, grimacing at the pain in his ribs. As the squad members slowly got back to their feet, the beast let out another furious roar and charged at Forrest for a second time. But this time, Forrest was ready. He could see that the beast was on its last legs, its strength almost completely spent. Gripping his spear tightly, Forrest waited for the perfect moment. As the beast lunged, he unleashed the wing of 100 birds, driving his spear straight through the wolf's body. The force of the attack was so intense that it sent Forrest flying back again, but this time, the system confirmed the kill, and he was rewarded with 8,000 experience points. Forrest gasped for breath, feeling like several of his ribs had definitely been cracked, but at least the beast was finally down for good. The rest of the squad rushed over to check on him. Even Bruiser, who had been skeptical of Forrest before, was now completely in awe. "I can't believe you took down a third-tier evolved beast," he muttered, clearly impressed. But before they could catch their breath, a new roar echoed from behind them. They all turned to see a second-tier zombie leader leap onto the corpse of the Wolf King. Forrest instantly recognized the sound. It was the same roar that had triggered the zombie horde earlier. What shocked him, though, was that the zombie leader didn't attack them. Instead, it dug into the Wolf King's body and pulled out its crystal, then ate the entire thing. The rest of the squad was just as shocked as Forrest. "Wait, can zombies actually evolve by absorbing crystals?" one of them muttered. As they watched in disbelief, the zombie leader's body began to change. Forrest quickly activated his eye of analysis and confirmed his worst fear. The zombie leader was indeed evolving, and its combat power was skyrocketing. It's about to evolve into a third-tier zombie leader. The realization hit everyone like a ton of bricks. Forrest knew they had to stop the evolution before it was too late. If they failed, none of them would make it out alive. The zombie leader let out another roar, summoning more zombies from the surrounding area. In no time, the squad found themselves surrounded once again. Forrest quickly took charge, telling everyone to hold off the zombies, and he will take down the leader. It's their only shot. If they don't kill it now, they are done for. With no time to lose, Forrest charged straight at the zombie leader, spear in hand. He skillfully dodged its initial attack and thrust his spear forward, but to his shock, the weapon barely scratched the zombie leader's skin. Is this because it absorbed the Wolf King's crystal? He thought. frustration bubbling up. Regardless of the reason, he knew he couldn't afford to waste any more time. Forrest prepared to use his wings of 100 birds, but just as he was about to strike, the zombie leader jumped back, and in a cunning move, it commanded the surrounding zombies to form a barrier between them. Forrest immediately sensed the danger. His charged attack had already been used, and after repeatedly unleashing his technique, his stamina was nearly depleted. He knew he had to eliminate the zombie horde in front of him quickly, or they'd all be overwhelmed. Desperation forced his hand as he pulled out the silver technique card he had received earlier. Now that he was a first tier, he figured he should be able to master the technique quickly. As soon as he activated the card, the knowledge of the skill flooded his mind. The essence of all martial arts lies in speed, he thought, recalling the age-old wisdom. The squad leader, watching from a distance, noticed Forrest suddenly coming to a halt. It dawned on her, with growing horror, that he was trying to learn a new martial skill right in the middle of a battle. Has he lost his mind? She muttered, seeing the zombies closing in on him. But Forrest wasn't fazed. Just as the zombies were about to reach him, he opened his eyes. Without a moment's hesitation, he unleashed the wrathful rainstorm. In the blink of an eye, the zombies surrounding him were skewered, their heads and bodies pierced by his lightning-fast strikes. However, after thrusting 3 times in under a second, Forrest knew it wasn't enough. He needed to be faster.